If you were slapped across the face by your stepmother just for spilling a soda, would you stay silent or destroy the web of lies she had built for years? I chose silence for exactly one more night in a cheap motel. But when a lawyer knocked on my door holding a thick file, I knew my life had just turned a page. And this time, the one crashing down would not be me. My name is Gabrielle Mason. I am 27 years old, and tonight I am sitting on the edge of a sagging mattress in the Sunset Pines Motel on the outskirts of Cedar Falls, Colorado. The room smells of stale tobacco and industrial lemon cleaner, a combination that usually makes my stomach turn, but right now, I can barely smell anything over the metallic tang of fear and adrenaline still coating the back of my throat. Outside, the rain is hammering against the thin window pane, a relentless, rhythmic drumming that matches the pounding headache forming behind my eyes. My hand hovers over my left cheek. It is hot to the touch. Even without looking in the cracked bathroom mirror, I know the skin is angry and red. I know the imprint of 4 fingers is slowly darkening into a bruise that will take days to fade. It happened 3 hours ago. The memory plays in my head like a corrupted video file, skipping and stuttering, but terrifyingly clear in the worst moments. We were at the anniversary party. The house was packed with relatives. I was holding a glass of soda, navigating through the crowd, trying to make myself invisible as I always do. The condensation on the glass made it slippery. I remember shifting my weight to avoid a running child, and in that split second, friction lost its battle with gravity. The cup slipped. It was just soda, sticky, dark, carbonated sugar water, but as it splashed across the front of Candace's cream-colored silk dress, you would have thought I had thrown acid. The music didn't stop, but the conversation in our immediate vicinity died instantly. Candace looked down at the stains spreading across her abdomen. For a second, her face was a mask of shock. Then, the mask fell away, revealing the pure, unadulterated malice she usually saved for when we were alone. She didn't scream. Screaming would have drawn too much attention from the guests in the other room. Instead, she gripped my upper arm with fingers like steel talons and marched me toward the guest bathroom. Her nails dug into my biceps so hard, I knew there would be crescent moon marks there tomorrow. "You clumsy, ungrateful little wretch," she hissed, as she shoved me inside and locked the door. The space was small, smelling of expensive potpourri. I tried to apologize. I tried to say the words. "I am sorry. It was an accident. I will pay for the dry cleaning." I never got the words out. Her hand connected with my face with a force that snapped my head to the side. It wasn't a disciplinary slap. It was a strike meant to hurt. It was 10 years of resentment packed into a single motion. My ear rang. I stumbled back against the marble vanity, clutching my cheek, looking at this woman who had demanded I call her mom for over a decade. "Look what you did," she whispered, her voice trembling with rage. She struck me again. "You ruin everything. You always have." Now, 3 hours later, sitting in this dingy motel room, I realized that was the moment something inside me finally broke. It wasn't the pain. I have taken emotional beatings from Candace since I was 10. It was the realization that I am almost 30 years old and still cowering in a bathroom like a frightened child. I packed a bag while she was changing her dress. I didn't say goodbye. I drove until my old sedan started making a noise that suggested it wouldn't go much further, pulling into the first place with a neon vacancy sign buzzing in the rain. My phone vibrates on the nightstand, dancing across the faux wood surface. It lights up the dark room. "Dad." I pick it up, not to answer, but to read the string of messages he has sent over the last 60 minutes. "Gabby, where are you? Candace is worried sick." "It was just an accident, honey. She's just stressed about the party. Come back. Please don't make a scene. You know how fragile Grandpa Everett's heart is right now. If he finds out you ran off, it will devastate him." I stare at the screen, reading the words over and over. Don't make a scene. That has been the motto of the Mason family for as long as I can remember. Mark Mason, my father, is a man who would rather swallow glass than confront his wife. He frames his cowardice as peacemaking. He frames my endurance of abuse as keeping the family together. And Grandpa Everett, that is the one hook they still have in me. My grandfather is the only person in that house who ever looked at me with genuine love in his eyes, even if he is old and frail and oblivious to the war being fought under his roof. I toss the phone onto the other pillow. The screen goes dark, leaving me alone with the shadows again. I feel trapped. The dampness of the room seems to be seeping into my bones. The wallpaper is peeling in the corner, revealing yellowed plaster underneath. This is my life. I think bitterly. A series of cheap, broken things. I have no real savings because Candace insisted she manage my finances to help me. I have no degree because she convinced my father that college was a waste of money for someone with my lack of focus. I have nothing but a car that is dying and a cheek that is throbbing. I make a decision. Tomorrow morning, 5 or 6 o'clock, I will check out. I will drive to the bus station. I will sell the car for whatever scrap value I can get. Buy a ticket to anywhere that isn't Cedar Falls, and I will disappear. I will ghost my own life. Grandpa Everett will be sad. Yes, but he has Candace and my half-brother Mason Jr. They are the golden ones. They are the ones he needs. I am just the ghost in the hallway. The stain on the silk dress. I lie back, staring at the water stains on the ceiling, trying to force my breathing to slow down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Knock, knock, knock. My heart stops. The sound is distinct. It is not the frantic pounding of a furious stepmother. It is not the hesitant, guilty tapping of my father. It is slow, deliberate, authoritative. 3 evenly spaced raps on the hollow wood of the motel door. I freeze. Who could possibly know I'm here? I paid cash. I didn't tell a soul. Maybe it is the motel manager. Maybe I parked in the wrong spot. I swing my legs off the bed and creep toward the door. The carpet is sticky under my bare feet. I hesitate at the peephole, but it has been painted over on the inside, a sloppy landlord special. Gabrielle Mason? The voice is male, deep, and completely unfamiliar. It is calm, carrying easily through the thin door over the sound of the rain. I don't answer. I look around the room for a weapon. The best I have is the heavy ceramic lid of the toilet tank, and I am not dragging that out here. I settle for the chain lock. I slide it into place with trembling fingers and crack the door open 2 inches. A slice of the outside world reveals itself. The wind is whipping rain sideways under the motel overhang. Standing there, illuminated by the flickering yellow light of the walkway, is a man who looks entirely out of place at the Sunset Pines Motel. He is wearing a suit, a gray, impeccably tailored suit that probably costs more than my car. He is holding a large black umbrella that shields him from the storm, and under his arm is a thick leather briefcase. He looks to be in his 50s, with silver hair combed back severely and wire-rimmed glasses that catch the light. "Who are you?" My voice cracks. I clear my throat and try again. Harder this time. "Who are you?" "My name is Arthur Blake," the stranger says. He doesn't try to push the door. He doesn't look impatient. He looks at me through the crack in the door with an expression I can't quite place. Pity? No. Determination. I am the personal attorney for Mr. Everett Mason. My grip on the door tightens. "My grandfather sent you?" "Not exactly," Arthur Blake says. He shifts his weight, tucking the umbrella under his arm so he can reach into his briefcase. "Mr. Mason has been trying to reach you for quite some time, Gabrielle, but tonight he received some disturbing information regarding an incident with a soda and a very unfortunate reaction from your stepmother." My breath hitches. How does he know? It happened 3 hours ago. "I am not here to take you back to them," Arthur says quickly, seeing the panic in my eyes. Quite the opposite. He pulls a thick manila folder from his bag. It is heavy, bound with a rubber band. He holds it up so I can read the label through the gap in the door. The light is dim, but the bold, black-typed letters are unmistakable. The Everett Mason Revocable Trust. Beneficiary, Gabrielle A. Mason. I stare at the words. They don't make sense. Beneficiary, that implies money. That implies assets. Candace has always told me Grandpa Everett has very little liquid cash left, that it is all tied up in the house and Mason Jr.'s future education. She gives me $20 here and there for gas like it is charity. I don't understand, I whisper. May I come in, Ms. Mason? Arthur asks gently. It is very wet out here, and we have 10 years of financial history to discuss. There is a great deal you do not know, a great deal that has been kept from you. I look at his face. He looks serious. He looks like a lifeline thrown into a drowning sea. I undo the chain lock. As the door swings open and Arthur Blake steps into the humid, cheap motel room, shaking the rain from his umbrella, I look down at the file in his hands again. It is thick, hundreds of pages thick. My eyes widen. The room seems to tilt slightly on its axis. The smell of lemon cleaner and old cigarettes fades, replaced by the scent of crisp paper and expensive leather. I have spent my life thinking I was poor, dependent, and helpless. But looking at that file, seeing my name printed there in black and white, I feel the first tremor of an earthquake that is about to level the ground beneath my feet. As Arthur Blake spreads the documents across the scratched laminate table of the motel room, my eyes catch a date on a bank statement from 17 years ago. That date acts like a physical hook, dragging me backward, away from the smell of lemon cleaner and into the scent of burnt toast and desperation that defined my childhood. I was 10 years old when I learned that money was not just currency, it was a weapon. My earliest clear memory is not of playing in the park or bedtime stories, but of the kitchen table in our old apartment. I remember sitting at the top of the stairs, pressing my face against the banister, watching my biological mother and my father, Mark, scream at each other. They were not fighting about infidelity or love. They were fighting about bills, the electric bill, the rent, the cost of my braces. I remember my mother throwing a stack of overdue notices into the air, the paper fluttering down like snow. Before she walked out the door, she said she was going to get cigarettes. She never came back. That abandonment hollowed my father out. He was a man who needed structure, needed someone to tell him who he was. He could not handle the silence of an empty house or the weight of a crying 10-year-old daughter. So, he found a replacement with terrifying speed. Enter Candace. She arrived 6 months later, like a character from a sitcom stepping onto a gritty documentary set. She was polished. She smelled of vanilla and expensive hairspray. She moved into our lives with a frightening efficiency, repainting the walls, changing the curtains, and rewriting our history. She brought with her a son, Mason Jr., who was 2 years younger than me. To the outside world, Candace was a saint. She was the woman who stepped up to raise a motherless child. She was the hero of the PTA, the woman who baked cupcakes for the bake sales and organized the charity drives. But inside the house, the dynamic was surgically precise in its cruelty. Candace did not beat me. She did not starve me. She simply erased me. Mason Jr. was the sun around which our new household orbited. If Mason Jr. got an A on a test, we went out for pizza to celebrate. If I got an A, Candace would nod absently and say that grades were expected, not rewarded. If the living room was messy, it was assumed to be my fault. I became the designated cleaner, the shadow that moved through the house picking up Mason Jr.'s socks and washing Candace's wine glasses, while they sat on the sofa watching movies I was not invited to see. But the true theft, the one Arthur Blake is now laying out in black and white in front of me, began with Grandpa Everett. Grandpa Everett was the only person who saw the erasure happening. He would come over for Sunday dinner, his eyes sharp and kind, and he would try to bridge the gap. He was a wealthy man, having made his money in commercial real estate before retiring, and he loved to spoil his grandchildren. I remember one Christmas when I was 12. Grandpa Everett called me into the kitchen while Candace was busy entertaining guests. He pressed a crisp envelope into my hand. "For your art supplies, Gabby," he had whispered, winking at me. "I know you have been wanting that deluxe paint set." Inside was $200. To me, it felt like a fortune. It was freedom. It was the ability to buy something that was just mine. But Candace had eyes in the back of her head. Later that night, As I was tucking the envelope under my mattress, she appeared in my doorway. She didn't yell. She smiled that tight, patient smile she used when she was explaining something to a toddler. "Gabrielle," she said softly, "detailed financial responsibility is not your strong suit, is it? Remember when you lost your library card? We cannot have that kind of money just lying around. You will lose it, or worse, someone will steal it." She held out her hand. "I will put it in a safe place for you, a savings account. When you are older, you will thank me." I handed it over. I always handed it over. I wanted her to love me. I thought if I was obedient enough, if I trusted her enough, she would finally look at me the way she looked at Mason Jr. That became the pattern. Every birthday check, every holiday cash gift, every allowance Grandpa tried to slip me, Candace would intercept it. She developed a narrative that she fed to the entire extended family, a lie so consistent that even my father began to believe it. "Gabrielle is such a free spirit," she would tell my aunts at Thanksgiving, laughing lightly as she poured wine. "She really does not care about material things. She's very anti-consumerist. Honestly, if you give her money or expensive gifts, it just makes her uncomfortable. She prefers experiences." It was a brilliant lie. It made her look sensitive to my needs, while stripping me of everything. Because of this narrative, the physical gifts started shifting. Grandpa Everett would bring a high-end gaming console for Mason Jr. For me, a sketchbook, a journal, maybe a pair of socks. "I didn't want to get you anything too flashy, Gabby," Grandpa would say, looking a little confused. "Candace said you are trying to live minimally." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him that I was wearing jeans from a thrift store because Candace said we couldn't afford new clothes for me, even though Mason Jr. was wearing brand-name sneakers. But I looked at my father, sitting there silently, chewing his roast beef, refusing to meet my eyes, and I looked at Candace, watching me with a predator's gaze, daring me to speak. So I smiled. "Thanks, Grandpa. I love the socks." The inequality grew as we got older. By the time I was 16, I was working 20 hours a week at a greasy diner after school just to pay for my own lunch and school supplies. I would come home smelling of old fryer oil and exhaustion, my feet throbbing in cheap shoes. I would walk into the living room and see Mason Jr. sprawling on the couch with a brand new laptop. "Grandpa sent it over," Mason would say without looking up from the screen. "Said he wanted to make sure we had good tech for school." I had asked for a laptop for months. I needed one for my essays. Candace had told me we didn't have the budget, yet here was a $2,000 machine, sitting on Mason's lap, while he played video games. When I asked to use it for homework, Candace told me I shouldn't disturb my brother's creative time and that I could use the library computer the next day. I tried to fight back once, just once. It was when I was 17. Grandpa had sent a check specifically for a class trip to Washington, D.C. that I had been dying to go on. It was addressed to me. I intercepted the mail before Candace got home. I was ecstatic. When Candace found out, the temperature in the house dropped 30 degrees. She didn't hit me. She sat me down at the kitchen table with a spreadsheet. She showed me a list of expenses: food, electricity, water, rent. "You think this is free, Gabrielle?" she asked, her voice trembling with feigned hurt. "Your father works so hard. I work so hard to keep this house running. And here you are, hoarding money for a vacation while we are struggling. I thought you were part of this family." She made me feel selfish. She made me feel like a parasite, broken by guilt. I endorsed the check over to her. The next week, she went to a spa weekend with her friends. She told Dad she needed it for her mental health to be a better mother. I learned to stop asking. I learned to stop hoping. I built a wall of silence around myself because it was safer than the disappointment. The final blow, the image that is burned into my retinas forever, happened on my 18th birthday. I had graduated high school with honors, despite working nights. Grandpa Everett had been hinting for months about a big gift for graduation. He knew I needed transportation to get to community college and my job. I walked out of the front door that morning, expecting something. Hope is a cruel thing. It survives even when you starve it. There was a car in the driveway, a brand new, silver sedan, red bow on top. My heart hammered against my ribs. I took a step forward. Then I saw Mason Jr. sitting in the driver's seat. He was only 16. He had just gotten his learner's permit. Candace was standing on the lawn, holding her phone up, snapping photos. She was beaming. "Look at you," she squealed at Mason. "You look so handsome." I froze on the porch. "Mom?" I asked, the word tasting like ash. Grandpa said. Candace turned to me, her face dropping into that mask of pity she wore so well. "Oh, Gabrielle, we talked to Grandpa about this. Since you are going to be working so close to home and taking the bus is so eco-friendly, which I know you love, we decided it made more sense for the car to be a family vehicle. And since Mason has sports practice, he really needs the mobility more." A family vehicle that Mason was driving. She turned back to her son. "Smile, honey. Let's post this. Big thanks to Grandpa Everett for the new wheels." I stood there for a long minute. I watched her upload the photo to Facebook. I watched the likes start rolling in. "Best mom ever. You guys are so blessed. What a lucky kid." I looked at the shiny car. I looked at Mason, who didn't even say thank you to me, just revved the engine. Then, I turned around. I walked down the driveway, past the new car, past the happy family tableau. I walked 3 blocks to the bus stop. It was raining that day, too. I sat on the cold metal bench, waiting for the number 42 bus to take me to my shift at the warehouse where I was stacking boxes for minimum wage. I pulled out my phone and saw the notification. Candace had tagged me in the photo. So proud of our kids. Mason with the new car, and Gabrielle, always forging her own independent path. We love you both. I didn't cry. That was the day the tears stopped. I just sat there, wet and cold, staring at the headlights of the oncoming bus, realizing that in the story of the Mason family, I was not a main character. I was not even a supporting role. I was a prop. And props do not get trust funds. Which brings me back to this motel room, to the file under Arthur Blake's hand. If what he is saying is true, if Grandpa Everett really did set up a trust, then everything, the poverty, the struggle, the guilt trips about being a burden, was a lie. They didn't just steal my money, they stole my life. They stole the person I could have been if I hadn't spent the last 10 years believing I was worthless. I look up at Arthur. "She told everyone I didn't want it," I say, my voice steady for the first time. "She told everyone I chose this." Arthur pushes his glasses up his nose. "Well, Ms. Mason, we are about to correct the record." The rain outside has turned into a torrential downpour, hammering against the roof of the Sunset Pines Motel like 1,000 tiny fists. But inside room 104, the silence is so heavy it feels physical. I am staring at the document Arthur Blake has just placed in front of me. It is a bank statement, the header embossed with the logo of a major national financial institution. My eyes scan the numbers, and my brain refuses to process them. I blink, thinking perhaps the dim yellow light of the bedside lamp is playing tricks on me. "This cannot be right," I say, my voice barely a whisper. "There is a mistake. This says over $300,000. Arthur pulls the chair from the small desk and sits opposite me. He moves with the precision of a man who deals in facts, not feelings. "There is no mistake, Gabrielle. For the past 10 years, on the 1st of every January, your grandfather has deposited the maximum allowable gift amount into this trust. He also transferred ownership of several small percentage holdings from his old commercial development firm into your name. Dividends, interest, compound growth. It adds up." I look at the paper again. $300,000. I think about the ramen noodles I ate for dinner 3 nights in a row last week because I was short on rent. I think about the duct tape holding my car's side mirror together. "But I never signed for this," I argue, my hands shaking. "You need signatures to open these accounts. You need authorization." Arthur reaches into his briefcase again and pulls out a second sheaf of papers. He lays them out like a royal flush in a high-stakes poker game. Technically, you did sign, or rather, Gabrielle Mason did. He points to a signature line at the bottom of a digital authorization form. It looks like my name. It looks like the digital font you select when signing a lease online. And all the notifications, Arthur continues, his voice dropping an octave, becoming harder, were sent to a verified email address on file, gabbymasontrust@gmail.com. I stare at him. I do not have that email address. My email is gabbym98. We know, Arthur says. We ran a trace on the creation of that account. It was registered 10 years ago. The recovery phone number is listed as Candace Mason's personal cell, and the IP addresses for every single login, every single digital signature, every single transfer authorization, they all trace back to one location, your father's house, specifically, a router that services the master bedroom and the home office. The air leaves my lungs. I feel dizzy. It is not just that she took the money, it is the calculation of it, the sheer, cold-blooded administration. Candace didn't just steal. She impersonated me. She created a digital ghost of Gabrielle Mason who was savvy, wealthy, and complicit, while the real Gabrielle Mason scrubbed her floors. She kept saying I was bad with money, I murmur, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my chest. She told Grandpa I was irresponsible. That is why she had to handle it. She told him more than that. Arthur corrects me. She told him you were grateful but fiercely independent. She told him you wanted to save every penny for a house one day and that you refused to touch the principal. She painted a picture of a young woman who was so noble. She chose to live in poverty while sitting on a gold mine. He flips a page to show a withdrawal log. However, the representative of the account, Candace, did make withdrawals for management fees, for emergency medical expenses that I assume you never had, for tuition assistance for a university you never attended. I trace the line of withdrawals with my finger. $5,000 here, $2,000 there. It was a slow bleed, a parasitic draining of my future to fund her lifestyle. Why now? I ask, looking up at him. If she has been doing this for 10 years, why are you here tonight? Did she slip up? Arthur takes off his glasses and cleans them with a silk handkerchief. His eyes look tired. Your grandfather is old, Gabrielle, but he is not senile. He started to wonder about 2 years ago. Remember the car? I flinch. The silver sedan. Yes, Everett bought that car for you. Specifically for you. He put the title in the family name for insurance purposes, or so Candace told him, but it was your gift. A week later, he came by the house and saw Mason Jr. waxing it in the driveway. He asked where you were. Candace told him you were afraid to drive it. She said you told her it was too flashy, and you preferred the bus because it gave you time to read. I never said that, I snap. I begged for a ride to work that day. Everett didn't buy it either, Arthur says. But he is a careful man. He didn't want to accuse his son's wife without proof. He started watching. He started asking me to look into the trust activity. We were building a case, slowly, but we didn't know the physical extent of the abuse. We thought it was just financial manipulation. Arthur pauses. He reaches for a tablet in his bag. Until 3 hours ago. He wakes the screen and turns it toward me. I apologize. This will be hard to watch. I look at the screen. It is a video, shaky and vertical, clearly filmed on a smartphone from across a room. I recognize the wallpaper. It is the hallway outside the guest bathroom at the anniversary party tonight. In the video, the door is open. You can see Candace gripping my arm. You can see her shoving me backward. And then, clear as day, you see her hand rear back. The sound of the slap is sickeningly loud, even through the tinny speakers of the tablet. You clumsy, ungrateful little wretch. The video zooms in on her face, twisted in ugly rage, and then pans to me, cowering against the sink. Then it cuts off. Who took this? I whisper. Your cousin Sarah, Arthur says. She was in the hallway. She didn't intervene because she was scared, but she sent it to her mother, who sent it to Everett immediately. She said, Grandpa needs to know what really happens when the guests aren't looking. I feel a tear slide down my bruised cheek. I wipe it away angrily. When Everett saw that video, Arthur says, his voice thick with suppressed emotion. He broke a vase. I have worked for that man for 30 years, and I have never seen him lose his temper. He called me 5 minutes later. He said, "Find her, bring her to safety, and then destroy anyone who hurt her." He wants to protect me? The concept feels foreign. He is devastated. Gabrielle, he thinks he failed you. He realized tonight that his silence and his desire to keep the peace allowed a monster to feed on his granddaughter. Arthur leans forward, his elbows resting on the table. He told me to hire a private investigator, but I didn't need one. I checked the payroll records for every service job in a 20-mile radius of your father's house. I know you work hard. I found your name on the housekeeping roster for the Grandview Hotel, and I called the night manager. He told me you had called in distressed and mentioned you might stay at the cheapest place you could find. It did not take long to check the motels. I look around the room again. The peeling wallpaper doesn't look like a prison anymore. It looks like a bunker, a starting point. So what happens now? I ask. Do I go back? Do we sue her? We do not just sue her, Arthur says, a dangerous glint appearing in his eyes. We dismantle her. If we go to the police tonight, she will claim it was a family dispute. She will claim she was disciplining you. It becomes a he said, she said situation regarding the assault. But the money? He taps the thick file with his index finger. The money is a felony, wire fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, forgery. He opens the file to the last page. It is a legal document, already drafted, waiting for a signature. This is an affidavit, Arthur explains. It states that you never opened these accounts, never authorized these transfers, and never received these funds. Once you sign this, and once we present this to the bank and the courts, the dominoes begin to fall. The bank will freeze everything, the IRS will get involved, and Candace's house of cards will collapse. He looks at me, and for the first time, he smiles. It is a shark's smile, sharp and ready for blood. However, we can do this the messy way, or we can do this the smart way. Everett wants to see you. He is currently at the hospital, not because he is ill, but because he checked himself in for chest pains to ensure your father and Candace would be occupied and away from the house while I found you. He bought us time. He is faking a heart issue for me? I ask, stunned. He is very committed to this operation, Arthur says dryly. He wants to meet you tomorrow morning. He wants to apologize, and then he wants to invite the family for a meeting where he claims he will be updating his will due to his health scare. I understand immediately. It is a trap. She will come thinking she is getting everything, I say, realizing the brilliance of it. She will come to make sure Mason Jr. gets the inheritance. Exactly, Arthur says. She will walk into that room expecting a payout. Instead, she will find you, me, and a forensic accounting of 10 years of theft. I look at the file. I look at the fake email address, Gabby Mason Trust. I think of the nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering why I wasn't good enough, why I was the only one struggling while they lived in comfort. I think of the lie about me being independent. They didn't just steal my money, they stole the truth. They made me believe I deserved to struggle. I reach out and touch the cool paper. My hand is no longer shaking. I don't want to go back to that house, I say firmly. You won't have to, Arthur promises. Everett has arranged a suite for you at the plaza downtown. Paid for, indefinitely. You are done with motels. Gabrielle. I take a deep breath. The smell of rain is still there, but the air feels different, lighter. Okay, I say. I will sign, and tomorrow, we go to the hospital. Arthur uncaps a heavy, expensive fountain pen and hands it to me. Welcome back to the family, Ms. Mason. As I grip the pen, I look at the reflection in the dark window. I see the bruise on my face. It doesn't look like a mark of shame anymore. It looks like war paint. I sign my name. The ink is black and permanent. The affidavit lies on the table between us. The ink of my signature glistening wet under the harsh motel lamp. The room feels smaller now, not because the walls are closing in, but because the magnitude of the betrayal is expanding, filling every corner of the space until it is hard to breathe. I look at the list of withdrawals again. My finger traces a line item from 3 years ago. June 12th, I read aloud. Purchase, $4,200. Memo, educational supplies. A memory, sharp and stinging, claws its way to the surface. I look up at Arthur. I remember this date. I was working double shifts at the diner. I came home exhausted, smelling of grease. Grandpa Everett had stopped by for a visit. He was sitting on the porch with a glass of lemonade. I closed my eyes, seeing the scene clearly. Grandpa had looked at me with that confused, hopeful smile he often wore when he tried to connect with me. He had asked, "How is the graphic design course going? Gabby, are you enjoying the new software?" At the time, I had felt a spike of irritation. I thought his mind was slipping. I thought he was confusing me with Mason Jr., who was always taking some new expensive camp or workshop. I had told him gently, "I am not taking a course, Grandpa. I am just working." He had looked so crestfallen. He had murmured, "But Candace said you enrolled. She said you needed the funds." I opened my eyes and looked at Arthur. I thought he was confused. I thought he was mixing up his grandkids. But he wasn't, was he? "No," Arthur says softly. He taps the line item on the paper. He was perfectly lucid. He had authorized the transfer a week prior. Candace told him you had been accepted into an intensive summer program for digital design. She showed him a brochure. She even showed him a fake acceptance letter. "I never applied to anything," I say, my voice flat. "I was saving up for new tires." "The money did not go to a school," Arthur says. He flips a page in his thick file to a credit card statement. Cross-reference the date, June 14th, a 4-day stay at the Silver Springs Luxury Spa in Aspen. The charge includes the rejuvenation package, which I believe involves mud baths and deep tissue massages. The cost was exactly $4,200. I feel sick, physically sick. I remember that week. Candace had told us she was going to visit a sick aunt in Wyoming. She had come back glowing, looking rested, while I was icing my swollen ankles after a 12-hour shift. "She used my tuition money to get a facial," I say. The absurdity of it wars with the cruelty. "It is a pattern," Arthur replies. "Look here. May 5 years ago. Heirloom maintenance, $1,500. I laugh, a short, bitter sound. "Let me guess. The pearl necklace?" Arthur nods. Everett gave Candace a specific check to have his late wife's pearls restrung and cleaned, intending them for your 21st birthday. He wanted them to be perfect for you. "I never got them," I say. "On my 21st birthday, Candace gave me a gift card to a grocery store. She said, 'I know things are tight for you, so this is practical.' But 2 weeks later, at the church potluck, I saw her wearing a vintage pearl choker. When I complimented it, she said she found it at an estate sale. She was wearing your inheritance around her neck," Arthur says, "and she used your own trust fund to pay for the clasp repair." The list goes on. The laptop I never got, the car insurance for a vehicle I wasn't allowed to drive, the medical expenses for a root canal I never had, while I was actually living with a toothache for months because I couldn't afford a dentist. Every line item is a specific instance where I suffered, and she profited. But then, a darker realization hits me. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the geography of my life. "Arthur," I say, leaning forward, "why am I still here? In Cedar Falls?" He tilts his head. "What do you mean?" "I wanted to leave." I tell him. "When I was 19, I had a chance to go to Denver. My friend offered me a roommate situation. It was cheap. I could have found a job there. I had my bags packed." I stare at the rain streaking the window. Candace sat me down in the kitchen. She held my hands. She looked me in the eye and said, "Gabrielle, you know Grandpa Everett isn't doing well. His heart is weak. If you leave now, if you move 3 hours away, it might just kill him. He needs his family close." She told me I would be selfish to abandon him in his twilight years. I look back at the lawyer. So I stayed. I gave up the apartment in Denver. I stayed in this town, working dead-end jobs, because I was terrified that if I left, I would be the reason Grandpa died. Arthur's expression hardens. The professional mask slips just enough to reveal genuine anger. That is the cruelest theft of all. Gabrielle, she did not keep you here for Everett. She kept you here because she needed a local IP address. She needed you close enough to intercept mail, but far enough away to keep you ignorant. If you had moved to Denver, you might have opened your own bank account. You might have changed your address. You might have become truly independent, and her control would have snapped. He reaches into the briefcase and pulls out a stack of envelopes. They are opened, the edges jagged. Every year, Arthur says, I sent a formal notice of the annual trust meeting to your legal address. This is a requirement by law. The beneficiary must be invited to review the fund's performance. He slides a letter across the table. Look at the signature on the return receipt. I look. It is a scrawl, received by G. Mason. It looks like my handwriting, I whisper. But I never saw this. She forged it, Arthur says. She intercepted the mailman, or she took it from the pile before your father got home. She signed for the certified letter. Then she probably threw the invitation in the trash. And then she logged into the email account she created for you and sent a reply to my office. He recites the email from memory, his voice dripping with disdain. Dear Mr. Blake, thank you for the update. I am currently very busy with my volunteer work and fully trust my stepmother to represent my interests at the meeting. Please proceed without me. Sincerely, Gabrielle. Volunteer work, I repeat. I was scrubbing toilets at the Holiday Inn. She painted you as a saint to cover her sins, Arthur says. I stand up and walk to the window. My reflection is ghostly against the dark glass. I see a woman who has been played for a fool, a woman who let herself be small so others could be big. But then, a cold knot of fear tightens in my stomach. Arthur, I say, turning back to him, if we do this, if we expose all of this, it destroys everything. Not just Candace, my dad, Mason Jr., the whole family. Yes, Arthur agrees calmly. Dad will hate me, I say, the old programming kicking in. He will say I am vindictive. He will say I should have come to him first. He will say I am tearing the family apart over money. I will be the villain, the ungrateful daughter who sued her mother. Stepmother, Arthur corrects. And let us be very clear about something. Gabrielle. He stands up and walks over to me. He is not a tall man, but he carries the weight of the law, which makes him feel formidable. This is not a family dispute. This is not a misunderstanding about an allowance. This is a Class 3 felony. This is wire fraud. This is forgery. This is grand larceny involving a protected trust. He points a finger at the file on the table. If a stranger on the street had done this to you, if a banker had stolen $300,000 of your money and used it to buy spa treatments, would you hesitate to call the police? No, I say. Then why does she get a pass? Arthur asks. Because she married your father? Because she let you sleep in the smallest room of her house? Blood is not a license to steal, and marriage is not a shield for abuse. You are not the one destroying the family. Gabrielle, she destroyed it the moment she signed your name on that first check 10 years ago. You are just the one turning on the lights. I look at him. His words cut through the fog of guilt that Candace has pumped into the air for decades. I am not the villain. I think about the slap. I think about the look in her eyes when she dragged me into the bathroom. She didn't see a daughter. She didn't even see a human being. She saw an object, a resource to be mined, a problem to be managed. I am afraid, I admit. I am afraid of what happens tomorrow. Good, Arthur says. Fear keeps you sharp, but you will not be alone. I will be there, and more importantly, Everett will be there. He checks his watch. It is late. We need to move. Everett is at St. Jude's Hospital. He has a private room. He is waiting for us. We are going to go there. Review the final timeline, and then tomorrow morning, we spring the trap. The hospital? I ask. I thought we were going to the plaza. We are, Arthur says. But first, a reunion. Everett needs to see you. He needs to see that you are safe. And you need to hear from him that this is what he wants. You need to know that he is on your side. Completely. I look at the door. I look at the rain. I look at the file that proves I am not worthless. I am standing at a crossroads. One path leads back to silence, to being the good girl who cleans up the mess and apologizes for existing. The other path leads to war. It leads to burning down the house I grew up in, metaphorically speaking. But then I remember the text from my father. Don't make a scene. I grab my jacket. Let's go, I say to Arthur. I want to see my grandfather. Arthur smiles again, and this time, there is no shark in it. Just respect. He packs the files away with a satisfying snap of the briefcase locks. After you, Miss Mason, he says. We walk out into the rain, leaving the Sunset Pines Motel behind. I leave the room key on the table. I leave the old Gabrielle in that room, too. The Gabrielle who would have apologized for the soda. She is gone. The woman getting into Arthur Blake's black sedan is someone else entirely, and she is ready to collect what is owed. The sterile smell of St. Jude's Hospital hits me the moment the elevator doors slide open on the 4th floor. It is a sharp contrast to the damp, earthy scent of the rain I just left behind, and for a second, I feel lightheaded. Arthur Blake steps out first, his briefcase swinging rhythmically by his side, his presence a silent command for me to follow. We walk down the corridor toward room 412. My heart is hammering against my ribs, not from fear of Candace this time, but from a terrifying hope. I haven't seen Grandpa Everett since the incident at the party, since the moment my life fractured and then weirdly, violently, began to heal. Arthur pushes the heavy door open and holds it for me. The room is dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the glowing monitors and a small reading lamp by the bed. Grandpa Everett looks smaller than I remember. He is propped up against a mountain of white pillows, an IV line running into the thin skin of his hand, but his eyes are open, and the moment they land on me, they fill with tears. "Gabby," he croaks. His voice is rough, lacking its usual boom, but the affection in it is undiluted. I rush to the bedside, ignoring the chair Arthur pulls out for me. I take his hand, the one without the IV, and hold it in both of mine. His skin feels like parchment paper, dry and fragile. "I am so sorry, Grandpa," I whisper, the words tumbling out. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I didn't mean to make you sick." "Hush," he says, squeezing my fingers with surprising strength. He reaches up and touches the side of my face, his thumb grazing the edge of the bruise Candace left there. His face hardens, the sorrow replaced by a flash of the iron will that made him a real estate tycoon 40 years ago. "You did not make me sick, Gabrielle. The truth made me sick, and I am the one who should be apologizing." He takes a shaky breath, his eyes locking onto mine. "For 10 years, I thought I was helping you build a future. I thought I was respecting your independence. I was an old fool. I let a fox guard the henhouse because I didn't want to believe she would eat the eggs." "You didn't know," I say. "I should have known," he insists. "I should have looked closer. But today we fix it." Arthur clears his throat gently from the corner of the room. "They are here, sir. They just parked." Everett nods. He releases my hand but points to the chair next to the bed. "Sit there. Do not move. Do not apologize. And do not let them see you bleed." I sit. Arthur moves to a small table near the foot of the bed. He sets up a small digital recorder, checks the battery light, and places a stack of files next to it. The scene looks less like a hospital visit and more like a deposition. 2 minutes later, the door bursts open. Candace leads the charge, of course. She is wearing a different dress than the one she wore to the party, something modest, subdued, in a shade of pale blue that suggests distress. Her makeup is minimal, calculated to make her look haggard with worry. My father, Mark, trails behind her, looking like a man marching to the gallows. Mason Jr. is nowhere to be seen. They probably left him in the waiting room with a tablet. "Everett," Candace gasps, rushing toward the bed, her hands outstretched. Oh, thank God. The doctor said it was angina? You scared us half to death. She reaches for him, but then she spots me. She freezes mid-stride. The transition from concerned angel to venomous stepmother takes less than a second. You, she hisses, her eyes narrowing. You selfish little brat. Look what you have done. You upset him at the party. You ran away. And now you have put your grandfather in the hospital? Do you have any shame at all? That is enough, Candace, Everett says. His voice is not loud, but it cuts through the room like a whip. Candace blinks, startled by the tone. She recovers quickly, pivoting back to him, smoothing the front of her dress. I am just upset. Everett, we have been frantic. Gabrielle disappeared without a word, and Mark has been driving around all night looking for her. We thought she was on drugs or something. Sit down, Everett commands. He points to the 2 plastic chairs facing the bed. Candace hesitates, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. She looks at Arthur, then at the recorder, and finally at me. She sits, but she perches on the edge of the seat, ready to spring. Dad sits next to her, staring at his shoes. I asked Arthur to bring Gabrielle here, Everett says, his gaze fixed on his daughter-in-law, because there are some discrepancies in my estate planning that we need to clear up immediately. Given my health scare, I want to make sure everyone is provided for. Candace relaxes visibly. She hears estate planning and provided for, and her greed overrides her caution. She reaches over and pats Dad's knee. Of course, Dad, we just want you to be healthy, but maybe we should discuss finances when you are stronger. Gabrielle doesn't really understand these things. It might be boring for her. Actually, Arthur interrupts, his voice smooth and professional. Gabrielle is the primary topic of this meeting, specifically, the Gabrielle Mason Revocable Trust. Candace's smile falters. The trust? Well, yes, we have been managing that for her. As I have told you, Everett, she is so overwhelmed by financial details. We are just keeping it safe until she is mature enough. Mature enough, Everett repeats. She is 27 years old. Candace, she has been working since she was 16. She manages her own rent, her own bills, her own survival. Tell me, when exactly does a woman become mature enough to stop having her inheritance stolen? The word stolen hangs in the air, heavy and toxic. Stolen? Candace lets out a high-pitched, incredulous laugh. That is a very strong word. Mark, do you hear this? He is confused. The medication must be affecting his judgment. She turns to me, her eyes flashing. What did you tell him, Gabrielle? Did you come here crying about being broke? Did you lie to get a handout? I asked her, Everett says, raising his voice over hers. I asked her why she never thanked me for the pearl necklace. I asked her why she never drove the silver sedan. I asked her why she didn't enjoy the $4,000 spa weekend in Aspen that was paid for out of her education fund. Candace goes pale. Her mouth opens and shuts like a fish out of water. I can explain that, she stammers. The spa, Gabrielle was supposed to go. Yes, she was supposed to go, but she backed out at the last minute because of work. I couldn't get a refund, so I went instead so the money wouldn't be wasted. I was doing her a favor. And the car? Arthur asks, looking up from his file. The car that you told Everett she refused to drive? The car that Mason Jr. has been driving to high school for 2 years? She is a nervous driver, Candace shouts, standing up. I was protecting her. If she crashed that car, the insurance rates would skyrocket. We were keeping it maintained for her. Sit down, Everett roars. The machines monitoring his heart rate start to beep faster. A frantic ping ping ping. Dad finally looks up, his face slick with sweat. Candace, please, sit down. You're upsetting him. I am upsetting him? She whirls on Dad. Your daughter has poisoned his mind. She has been jealous of me for years, and now she is twisting everything. Arthur stands up. He doesn't shout. He simply picks up a piece of paper and holds it out. This is a printout of an email sent from GabbyMasonTrust@gmail.com, dated August 14th of last year. It is a reply to my request for a meeting. He reads aloud. Mr. Blake, please do not bother me with these meetings. I have no interest in the money. Give whatever dividend is available to my stepmother for household expenses. She knows what is best. Arthur looks at Candace over the rim of his glasses. Gabrielle did not write this. We traced the IP address. It came from your home computer. Candace, specifically, the desktop in the study. Anyone could have used that computer, Candace argues, though her voice is losing its power. Gabrielle comes over all the time. She could have snuck in and sent it to frame me. At 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, Arthur asks, when Gabrielle was clocked in on the night shift at the Grandview Hotel? We have her time card. Candace falls silent. She looks trapped. She looks at Dad. Mark, say something. Tell them. Tell them how hard I work to manage this family's money. Tell them Gabrielle asked me to handle it. Everyone looks at Mark Mason, my father, the man who stood by while she erased me. He looks at Candace, then he looks at me. I see the conflict in his eyes. He is terrified of her. He has spent 10 years walking on eggshells, agreeing with her lies to keep the peace, sacrificing me to keep his bed warm and his dinner cooked. Mark, Candace prompts him, her voice sharp. Tell them. Dad swallows hard. He looks at Arthur, then at the email in Arthur's hand. I saw it, Dad whispers. What did you say? Everett asks, leaning forward. I saw the email, Dad says, his voice shaking. I walked into the study that night. You were typing it. I asked you what you were doing, and you said Gabrielle was too stupid to handle the money. You said we needed it for the renovations. You said she would just waste it on rent. Mark, Candace screams, a sound of pure betrayal. I told you it was wrong, Dad continues, tears leaking from his eyes. I told you we shouldn't do it, but you said if I told anyone, you would leave me. You said you would take Mason Jr. and I would never see him again. He puts his head in his hands. I was scared. I just wanted a quiet life. The silence that follows is absolute. The only sound is the rain against the window and the steady beep of the heart monitor. I look at my father, and I feel something inside me wither and die. It isn't love. That died a long time ago. It is the last shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, he was a victim too. He wasn't a victim. He was an accomplice. He watched her steal my future, and he said nothing because he didn't want a divorce. You coward, Everett says. The word is soft, but it hits harder than a punch. You weak, pathetic coward. You let this woman rob your own child. You let her treat Gabrielle like a servant in her own home, knowing she had hundreds of thousands of dollars in her name. I am sorry, Dad sobs. Gabby, I am so sorry. Save it, I say. My voice is cold. I don't feel like crying. I feel like burning the world down. Everett turns his eyes back to Candace. She is no longer feigning concern. She is standing there with her arms crossed, her face twisted into a sneer. The mask is gone. Fine, she says. So I spent some of it. I raised her, didn't I? I fed her. I put a roof over her head. That wasn't free. I deserve a management fee. You think it was easy dealing with a sullen, ungrateful stepdaughter for 15 years? You deserve prison, Arthur says calmly. And you might get there yet. Everett raises a hand to stop Arthur. Arthur, execute the freeze. Already done, sir, Arthur says. As of 9 o'clock this morning, every account connected to Candace Mason, joint or individual, has been frozen pending a fraud investigation. The credit cards are dead. The bank accounts are locked. Even the savings account for Mason Jr. is under review because we found transfers from Gabrielle's trust flowing into it. Candace's eyes bulge. You can't do that. That is my money, Mark's money. It is money derived from fraud, Everett says. And until every single penny that belongs to Gabrielle is accounted for and returned, you will not access a dime. I am also removing you as the executor of my will. I am removing Mark, too. He looks at his son with profound disappointment. I cannot trust you to protect this family. Mark. So I'm taking the power away. You can't cut us off, Candace screeches. She lunges toward the bed, her hands shaped like claws. After everything I did for you? I took care of you. Arthur steps in front of her, blocking her path. He is not a big man, but he looks immovable. I would suggest you step back. Mrs. Mason, security is already on their way up. If you touch him, I will add assault on an elderly person to the list of charges I am filing tomorrow. Candace stops. She looks at Arthur, then at Everett, and finally at me. Her eyes are full of hate, but underneath it, for the first time in my life, I see fear. Real, genuine terror. She realizes the tap has been turned off. She realizes the narrative she controlled for so long has just been rewritten by the girl she thought was a ghost. Get out, Everett says. Both of you, get out of my sight. Dad stands up, wiping his face. He looks like he wants to say something to me, but I turn my head and look out the window. I cannot look at him. Candace straightens her dress. She tries to muster some dignity, but her hands are shaking. This isn't over. Everett, you will hear from my lawyer. I look forward to it, Arthur says pleasantly. Tell him to bring a calculator. She storms out, the door slamming behind her. Dad lingers for a second, a pathetic figure in the doorway, before following her. When they are gone, the room feels instantly lighter. The air is breathable again. Everett sags back against the pillows, the adrenaline leaving him. He looks exhausted. Are you okay, Grandpa? I ask, leaning forward. He closes his eyes and nods. I am better than I have been in years, Gabby, because now I know the truth. He opens his eyes and looks at me. Now, we get your money back. All of it. I look at Arthur. He is already packing up the recorder. He gives me a small nod. The first battle is won, but the war is just beginning. The conference room at Blake and Rowan looks less like a law office and more like a war room. For the last 48 hours, I have been sitting at a mahogany table long enough to land a small plane on, surrounded by boxes of financial records. Arthur has assembled a team of 3 junior associates. Young, hungry lawyers who smell blood in the water. They are the forensic accountants of the legal world. And right now, they are dissecting Candace Mason's life transaction by transaction. It feels like a heist movie, but in reverse, we are not planning a robbery. We are reconstructing one. Got another one, a paralegal named David says from the far end of the table. He does not look up from his laptop. August, 2 years ago, withdrawal of $3,500. Memo says, emergency dental surgery for beneficiary. I shake my head, taking a sip of the lukewarm coffee that has become my primary food group. I have never had dental surgery. I still have my wisdom teeth because Candace said getting them removed was cosmetic and unnecessary. Arthur, who is standing by a whiteboard covered in a complex timeline drawn in red marker, nods sharply. Cross-reference that date with Candace's social media. Another associate, Sarah, types furiously. Found it. Facebook album titled, New Smile, New Me. She got veneers. Posted August 12th. The cost for 4 porcelain veneers aligns perfectly with the withdrawal amount. She bought herself new teeth with my wisdom tooth money, I say, the absurdity of it settling in my chest. It is not funny, but the sheer audacity is almost impressive. Mark it as Exhibit 42, Arthur commands. He draws another red line connecting a bank logo to a photo of Candace smiling blindingly at a garden party. The whiteboard is filling up fast. It is a map of 10 years of systematic looting. We found the educational trip to Europe that was actually a down payment on a boat for Mason Jr. We found the textbook stipend that paid for Candace's subscription to a high-end wine delivery service. Every time she told me we were broke, every time she made me feel guilty for eating an extra slice of pizza, she was literally eating my inheritance. I feel a vibration in my pocket. It is my phone. For a second, panic flares, my conditioned response to any potential contact from my father or stepmother, but then I remember I blocked their numbers yesterday on Arthur's advice. It is a reminder I set for myself. Call work. I excuse myself and step out into the plush, carpeted hallway. I walk to the window overlooking the Denver skyline. It is a world away from the view at the Sunset Pines Motel. I dial the number for the Grandview Hotel. My stomach twists. I have never called in sick without a legitimate, doctor-verified reason. Candace drilled it into me that I was lucky to have a job at all, that I was expendable, and that asking for time off was a sign of laziness. Grandview Housekeeping, a gruff voice answers. Mr. Henderson? I say, my voice trembling slightly. It is Gabrielle Mason. Gabby? The tone changes instantly. Where are you? You didn't show for your shift 2 nights ago. We were worried. I was about to call the cops. I am so sorry, I say, the apology instinctive. I have had a family emergency. A legal situation has come up. I don't think I can come in for the rest of the week, maybe longer. I brace myself for the yelling. I brace myself to be fired. I need that job. Even with the trust fund revealed, my brain is still wired to survive on minimum wage. Gabby, listen to me, Mr. Henderson says, his voice surprisingly gentle. I saw the police report regarding your grandfather. Well, not the report, but I heard some talk. You are a good kid. You work harder than anyone on my crew. You take whatever time you need. Your job will be here when you get back. Do you need an advance on your check? I blink, tears pricking my eyes. No. I am okay. Thank you. Mr. Henderson. Take care of yourself, he says, and hangs up. I lower the phone, staring at it, for years. Candace told me that the world was harsh, that bosses were cruel, and that she was the only one who would ever tolerate my incompetence. But here's a grumpy hotel manager offering me job security and an advance. She didn't just steal my money. She stole my perception of reality. I walk back into the conference room with a straighter spine. Arthur, I say, sitting down, what do you need next? Arthur pushes a stack of printed screenshots toward me. We have the numbers. Gabrielle, now we need the narrative. I need you to go through your old phone. I need you to find the texts, the emails, the voicemails that correspond to these dates. We need to prove intent. We need to show the jury, or the judge, that while she was spending this money, she was actively lying to you about it. I pull out my old, cracked smartphone, the one I used before I got my current prepaid one. I powered it up this morning. It is a time capsule of misery. I open the message thread with Mom. It goes back years. It is physically painful to read. It is like touching a hot stove repeatedly. May 4 years ago. Me. Mom, I really need $60 for the uniform fee at the diner. They won't let me start without the non-slip shoes. Candace. Gabrielle, we simply do not have it this month. The mortgage is killing us. Why are you always asking for more? Can't you borrow used shoes? You need to learn to be resourceful. Grandpa is already disappointed that you are not contributing to the household. I look up at Sarah. Check May. 4 years ago, around the 15th. Sarah taps the keys. May 14th, withdrawal, $400, purchase at the Golden Leash, that is a luxury pet grooming salon. She spent $400 on the dog, I whisper, and told me we couldn't afford $60 for my work shoes. We got her, David says, sounding satisfied. That is malice. That is calculated deprivation. I screenshot the text and email it to the secure server. We do this for hours. We match the lie to the theft. Lie. We can't afford to fix the heater in your room. Just use an extra blanket. Theft. A $1,200 purchase at a ski resort gift shop. Lie. Grandpa can't afford a graduation gift this year. The market is down. Theft. A $5,000 transfer to Mason Jr.'s savings account labeled graduation bonus. By the time the sun starts to set, turning the Denver sky into a bruised purple, the file is 3 inches thick. It is a monument to her greed. I feel exhausted, but it is a clean exhaustion. It is the feeling of scrubbing a dirty floor until the true pattern of the wood shows through. Gabrielle, Arthur says softly. I look up, He is holding a small USB drive. "We need to discuss the audio," he says. "The recording from the party. We are going to play it at the hearing. I need to know if you are ready to hear it again. We need to transcribe it for the court." I nod. "Play it." He plugs it into the laptop speakers. The room goes silent. Click. "You clumsy, ungrateful little wretch." The sound of the slap echoes in the conference room. "Look what you did. You ruin everything. You always have." I listen to her voice. I listen to the hatred dripping from every syllable. I listen to the sound of my own younger self whimpering, apologizing, begging for forgiveness for a crime I didn't commit. Yesterday, hearing this made me crumble. Yesterday, I felt like that little girl in the bathroom. But today, I look at the whiteboard covered in red lines. I look at the bank statements. I look at the text messages where she told me I was a burden while spending my fortune on dog grooming. I don't cry. My eyes are dry. I hear the recording differently now. It isn't the voice of a powerful matriarch disciplining a bad child. It is the voice of a desperate, greedy woman trying to beat her victim into submission because she knows that if the victim ever stands up, the game is over. "She sounds scared," I say. Arthur pauses the recording. He looks at me with approval. "She sounds like someone losing control." "She called me a stranger in my own house," I say. "She used to say, 'You are not blood. Gabrielle, you are just a guest we tolerate.'" I pick up the bank statement showing the trust fund my grandfather, my blood, set up for me. She was the guest. She was the one spending someone else's money. "Exactly," Arthur says. The door opens, and a woman walks in. She is striking, with sharp features, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, and a suit that looks like armor. She carries a briefcase that looks even heavier than Arthur's. "Gabrielle," Arthur says, standing up, "I want you to meet Marisol Vega. She is a specialist in trust litigation and has been appointed by the court as the temporary guardian ad litem for the estate's assets, given the fraud allegations." Marisol walks over and shakes my hand. Her grip is firm, cool, and reassuring. "I have reviewed the preliminary file," Marisol says. Her voice is husky and precise. "It is a bloodbath. Ms. Mason, in 20 years of practice, I have rarely seen a fiduciary breach this egregious. I am here to make sure she doesn't just lose the money. I am here to make sure she loses the capacity to ever handle a dollar that isn't hers again." Marisol is the shark I call when the water gets deep, Arthur explains with a small smile. "She is going to lead the deposition." "Deposition?" I ask. "We are not waiting for a trial," Marisol says. "We are triggering an emergency ex parte hearing to formalize the asset freeze and remove her from the home. But first, we are inviting them to a mediation at this office, tomorrow morning." "Will they come?" I ask. "Oh, they will come," Arthur says, "because I sent a notification that if they do not attend to clarify certain accounting discrepancies, we will hand the entire file directly to the district attorney by noon." He hands me a copy of the invitation letter. It is polite, formal, and terrifyingly vague. It gives Candace just enough hope that she can talk her way out of it, while ensuring she walks right into the lion's den. "She thinks she can outsmart you," I say, realizing how Candace's mind works. "She thinks I am weak, and she thinks Grandpa is senile. She thinks she can come here and spin a story about how she was investing the money for me." "Let her try," Marisol says, her eyes gleaming. "I love it when they try to spin stories against math. Math always wins." Arthur starts packing up the boxes. "Go back to the hotel. Gabrielle, order room service. Take a hot bath. Sleep in a bed that costs more than $50 a night, because tomorrow, you are not going to be the girl in the motel room anymore. Tomorrow, you are the plaintiff." I stand up. My legs feel steady. "Okay," I say. I walk out of the office, leaving the evidence behind. I don't need to carry it with me anymore. It is on the whiteboard. It is in the files. It is in the hands of people who know how to use it. I get into the elevator and watch the numbers count down. For the first time in 10 years, I am not counting down to a disaster. I am counting down to justice. I touch the bruise on my cheek. It is fading, turning a sickly yellow green. By the time this is over, it will be gone, and so will she. The conference room at Blake and Rowan is designed to intimidate. It is all glass and steel, suspended 20 floors above the city, offering a view of the world that makes human problems look like ant farms. I am sitting at the head of the table, flanked by Grandpa Everett on my right and Marisol Vega on my left. Arthur stands by the projector screen, a remote in his hand, looking like a conductor waiting for the orchestra to settle. Grandpa Everett looks better today. He is wearing his old tweed suit, the one he used to wear to board meetings. He is pale, yes, and his hands tremble slightly where they rest on the polished mahogany, but his eyes are clear. He looks like a titan waking up from a long nap. "They are here," the receptionist's voice crackles over the intercom. "Send them in," Arthur says. The double doors swing open, and Candace Mason makes her entrance. I have to give her credit. The woman commits to the bit. She is not wearing the frantic, disheveled look from the hospital yesterday. Today, she is wearing a sharp navy blazer, pearl earrings, and an expression of righteous indignation. She walks in with her chin held high, clutching a designer handbag that I now know was likely purchased with my dental fund. My father, Mark, walks a step behind her, looking like a man walking into a firing squad, and trailing behind him is Mason Jr. My half-brother is 19, slouching in a hoodie, looking annoyed to be awake before noon. He has headphones around his neck and is chewing gum with an open mouth. Candace stops at the other end of the table. She does not sit down. She scans the room, her eyes lingering on Marisol, then snapping to Arthur. "This is ridiculous," she announces, tossing a folder onto the table. "I spoke to my attorney this morning. He says this is harassment. You cannot freeze our joint accounts without a court order. Arthur, we have bills to pay. Mason has tuition due next week." "Actually," Marisol says, her voice cutting through the air like a scalpel, "we can freeze them. It is called an emergency injunction to prevent the dissipation of assets derived from criminal activity. And as for your lawyer, I assume you mean Mr. Henderson, the strip mall divorce attorney? He hung up on me the moment I mentioned the words federal wire fraud." Candace stiffens. "We have done nothing criminal. We managed family funds. That is all." She finally looks at me. Her gaze is withering. "And you? Hiding behind expensive lawyers? I hope you are proud of yourself, Gabrielle, tearing this family apart because you are jealous of your brother." "Sit down, Candace," Grandpa Everett says. He does not shout. He says it with the weight of the man who paid for the house she lives in. Candace hesitates, then pulls out a chair and sits. Mark and Mason follow suit. "We are not here to debate," Arthur says. "We are here to clarify the timeline of events for the record before we file the final motions, and to give you one chance, one singular chance, to mitigate the damage before the district attorney gets involved." "Damage?" Candace scoffs. "The only damage is to my reputation." "Lights, please," Arthur says to the paralegal. The shades lower automatically. The room dims. The projector hums to life. A massive image appears on the screen. It is an email chain. "Exhibit A," Arthur narrates. "An email sent 3 years ago to the bank, declining a meeting to review investment strategies for the Gabrielle Mason Trust. The sender claims to be Gabrielle Mason." Arthur points the laser pointer at the text. "I am too busy with my studies to attend. Please allow my stepmother full discretion." "So," Candace says, waving a hand, "Gabrielle asked me to write it. She was working 2 jobs. She hates paperwork. I was helping her." "Gabrielle was not working 2 jobs that day," Arthur says. "We checked the records. That email was sent on a Tuesday at 10 in the morning. Gabrielle was in the hospital recovering from a severe allergic reaction. She was unconscious." I watch my father flinch. I remember that day. I had eaten something at the diner that triggered my nut allergy. I was in the ER for 6 hours. Candace hadn't come to get me. She said she was busy with errands. "She could have sent it from her phone," Candace argues. "The IP address is static," Arthur counters. It came from your desktop computer, the one in your home office. He clicks the remote. The image changes. It is a grainy black and white video. Exhibit B, Arthur says. This is footage from the post office security camera. Dated 6 months ago. This is the day a certified letter regarding the trust's tax liabilities was delivered. On the screen, Candace stands at the counter. She is smiling at the clerk. She signs a digital pad. She takes the envelope, a distinct, thick yellow packet from the IRS. We have the clerk's affidavit, Arthur says. He asked for identification. You showed him your ID, but you told him you had power of attorney for Gabrielle. You signed Gabrielle Mason on the pad. I was picking up mail for the household, Candace stammers. Her confidence is starting to crack. It is a family mailbox. Forgery of a federal document is a felony. Mrs. Mason, Marisol adds helpfully, 5 years per count, and we have counted 12 instances. Mason Jr. stops chewing his gum. He looks at the screen, then at his mother. Mom, you said Gabby didn't pay her taxes. You told me she was in trouble with the IRS, and that is why she couldn't help with my car insurance. Shut up, Mason, Candace snaps. No, Arthur says. Keep talking, Mason, because this next one is for you. Arthur clicks the remote again. A document appears. It is a sworn statement from a bank manager at First National. Arthur reads the highlighted section aloud. Mrs. Candace Mason explicitly stated to me on multiple occasions that the beneficiary, Gabrielle Mason, was mentally incapacitated and unable to manage her own affairs. She presented a document claiming legal guardianship, which allowed her to bypass the 2-signature requirement for withdrawals over $10,000. The room goes dead silent. I feel the blood drain from my face. Mentally incapacitated. That was her play. That was how she got around the safeguards. You told them I was crazy? I whisper. Candace refuses to look at me. She stares straight ahead, her jaw set. Mark, Grandpa Everett says, turning to his son. Did you know she told the bank your daughter was mentally disabled? My father looks like he's going to be sick. He shakes his head slowly. No, I didn't know that. She told me. She told me she had a special arrangement. She said Gabrielle signed a waiver. She lied to you, Mark, Everett says. Just like she lied to me. Yes. It was a technicality, Candace explodes. She slams her hand on the table. They were making it impossible to access the money. I needed that money for the roof repairs, for Mason's braces, for the family. I had to say what I had to say to get through the red tape. I did it for us. You did it for yourself, Arthur says calmly. He clicks the remote one last time. A spreadsheet appears. It is the one we built yesterday. Spa visits, jewelry, designer clothes, a lease on a luxury SUV. Where is the roof repair? Candace? Arthur asks. Where is the household maintenance? Because 70% of these withdrawals went to high-end retail and hospitality vendors. Mason Jr. is staring at the screen. He points to a line item. Tech warehouse, $2,000. That was my gaming setup. He turns to me, his face pale. Gabby? Mom told me Grandpa bought that. She said Grandpa sent the money specifically for me. Grandpa didn't send it, I say softly. I paid for it. It came out of my education fund. Mason looks at his mother with a look of pure horror. You stole from Gabby to buy me video games? And then you let me brag about it to her? I gave you what you deserved, Candace shrieks, turning on her son. I made sure you had the best. Why are you attacking me? I am your mother. You are a liar, Mason says. He pushes his chair back and stands up, moving away from her as if she is contagious. This is a witch hunt. Candace stands up too, her face flushed red. She points a shaking finger at me. You manipulated this, Gabrielle. You have always been jealous of the life we built. You were always the outsider. You were always the sad little orphan girl moping around, making us feel guilty. You drove me to this. If you had just been normal, if you had just contributed, I wouldn't have had to manage everything. Manage, I ask? You mean steal? I mean survive, she yells. I held this family together while your father was too weak to do anything and your grandfather was too old to notice. I deserve that money. I earned it dealing with you. Arthur looks at Marisol. Marisol nods. One last thing, Arthur says. We need to address the assault. Oh, please, Candace rolls her eyes. I tapped her cheek. She was hysterical. I was trying to snap her out of it. Is that so? Arthur asks. Let us listen to the tape. He presses a button on the laptop. The speakers in the ceiling crackle. The room fills with the sound of the party, the music, the chatter, and then the slam of the bathroom door. You clumsy, ungrateful little wretch. The voice is crystal clear. It is guttural. It is filled with hate. Whack. The sound of the slap is loud. It sounds like a gunshot in the quiet conference room. Look what you did. You ruin everything. You always have. I watch my father. As the recording plays, the sound of me crying, the sound of her hitting me a second time, his face crumbles. The Mark Mason who has been hiding for 10 years finally breaks. He looks at his hands. He looks at the woman he married. The recording ends with the sound of the door unlocking. Silence stretches out for 10 seconds. You didn't just tap her, Dad says. His voice is barely a whisper. Mark, don't be dramatic, Candace starts. You hit her, Dad says, his voice rising. He stands up. He is shaking. You hit my daughter, and you sounded like you enjoyed it. She ruined my dress, Candace screams. It was silk. It was soda, Dad roars. He slams his fist onto the table, making the water pitcher jump. It is the first time in my life I have ever seen him raise his voice at her. She is my child, and you hit her like a dog. Candace recoils, genuinely shocked. She looks around the room for an ally, but there are none. Mason is looking at the floor. Everett is looking at her with cold disgust. The lawyers look like executioners. I was stressed, Candace falters. You don't understand the pressure. Ms. Vega, Marisol says, standing up and smoothing her skirt. I have heard enough. Based on the admission of fraud regarding the guardianship claim, the evidence of forgery, and the audio recording of physical abuse, I am filing an emergency motion with the court within the hour. She looks Candace dead in the eye. I am asking the judge to remove you immediately as a trustee. I am asking for a temporary restraining order to keep you away from Gabrielle and Mr. Everett Mason, and I am asking for an order to vacate. You will need to leave the family home, Mrs. Mason, as it is technically an asset of the trust that you have been pilfering. You can't kick me out of my house, Candace gasps. It is not your house, Grandpa Everett says. I bought it, I put it in the trust, and you just lost your right to live in it. Candace looks at Mark. Mark, do something. They are making me homeless. My father looks at me. He sees the bruise on my cheek. He sees the woman I have become despite him. He turns to Candace. You have an hour to pack, he says. I will drive you to your sister's. Mark? Candace whispers. If you don't leave, Dad says, his voice flat and dead, I will call the police myself and report the assault. Candace stands there for a moment, her chest heaving. She looks at the evidence on the screen. She looks at the family she thought she controlled. She realizes the strings have been cut. She grabs her handbag. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't cry. She just glares at me with pure, undiluted hatred. You think you won? She spits. You are still just a sad little girl with no mother. Maybe, I say, meeting her gaze evenly. But I am a sad little girl with $300,000 and a really good lawyer. Goodbye, Candace. She spins on her heel and marches out. The door slams behind her. The tension in the room snaps. Mason Jr. sinks into his chair, putting his head in his hands. Dad stays standing, staring at the door. Grandpa Everett reaches over and covers my hand with his. It is done, he says softly. I look at the blank screen where the evidence was. I feel a strange sensation in my chest. It isn't happiness. It is lighter than that. It is the feeling of a heavy weight finally being set down. Not yet, I say. Now we go to court. The Superior Court of Cedar Falls is a room designed to make you feel small. The ceilings are too high, the wood paneling is too dark, and the air conditioning hums with a sterile, indifferent coldness. I am sitting at the plaintiff's table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to stop them from shaking. To my right, Arthur Blake is arranging his papers with the terrifying precision of a surgeon preparing for an amputation. To my left, Marisol Vega is staring down the opposing counsel like a lioness watching a limping gazelle. Across the aisle, Candace sits next to her lawyer, a man named Mr. Sterling who has too much gel in his hair and a suit that is slightly too shiny. Candace looks diminished without her entourage. My father is sitting in the back row of the gallery, alone, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. Mason Jr. is not here. He stayed home, sick with shame. All rise, the bailiff announces. Judge Eleanor Vance sweeps into the room. She is a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that look like they have seen every variety of human greed and are impressed by none of it. She sits down, adjusts her glasses, and looks at the docket. We are here for an emergency hearing regarding the removal of a trustee and a motion for a temporary restraining order in the matter of the Everett Mason Revocable Trust, Judge Vance says. Her voice is dry and crisp. Let us proceed. Mr. Blake? Arthur stands up. Your Honor, we intend to prove that the respondent, Candace Mason, has engaged in a decade-long scheme of systematic embezzlement, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty against the beneficiary, Gabrielle Mason. Call your first witness, the judge says. I call Gabrielle Mason to the stand. I walk to the witness box. I can feel Candace's eyes boring into the side of my head, but I do not look at her. I place my hand on the Bible. I swear to tell the truth. I sit down. Arthur approaches the podium. Ms. Mason, can you describe your financial situation for the court over the last 5 years? I take a deep breath. I have lived below the poverty line. Sir, I work full-time as a housekeeper at the Grandview Hotel, and before that, I worked as a waitress at a diner. I earn minimum wage. I drive a car that is 20 years old and currently has a taped-on side mirror. I rent a room in a shared apartment for $600 a month because I cannot afford a studio of my own. And during this time, Arthur asks, were you aware that a trust in your name held assets valuing over $300,000? No, I say clearly. I was told by my stepmother that I had no money. I was told that my grandfather's gifts were small or non-existent. When I needed money for dental work or car repairs, I was told the family could not help me. Mr. Sterling stands up. Objection. Hearsay. Overruled, Judge Vance says, looking at me. Go on, Ms. Mason. She told me I was a burden, I continue, my voice gaining strength. She told me I had to work multiple jobs because there was no safety net. She watched me struggle to pay for groceries while she was driving a car bought with my tuition money. Arthur nods. Thank you, Ms. Mason. Mr. Sterling approaches for cross-examination. He smiles a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Ms. Mason, is it not true that you lived in the family home until you were 18? Did Candace Mason not provide you with food, shelter, and clothing? Is it possible you are confusing theft with reimbursement for the cost of raising you? I look at him. I think about the hand-me-down clothes. I think about the chore list that was 3 times longer than Mason Jr.'s. I was not a boarder. Mr. Sterling, I say. I was a child, and parents are not supposed to charge their children rent by looting their future savings accounts without their knowledge. And even if they were, she took $300,000. I did not eat $300,000 worth of toast. A ripple of laughter moves through the courtroom. Judge Vance hides a smile behind her hand. Mr. Sterling flushes and sits down. I call Mark Mason, Arthur says. My father stands up from the back row. He looks 10 years older than he did yesterday. He walks to the stand like a man walking to the gallows. Mr. Mason, Arthur asks, were you aware of the emails sent from your wife's computer impersonating your daughter? Dad looks at Candace. She is glaring at him, silently willing him to lie. But the spell is broken. He looks back at Judge Vance. "I knew," Dad whispers. "Speak up, please," the judge says. "I knew," Dad says, his voice cracking. "I caught her doing it once. She told me. She told me Gabrielle was irresponsible. She said she was protecting the money. But then I saw the credit card bills, the spa trips, the jewelry." "And why did you not intervene?" Arthur asks. "Because I was weak," Dad admits. Tears start to roll down his face. "I was afraid of her. She threatened to leave and take my son. I sacrificed my daughter's well-being for my own peace of mind. I let her steal everything." Candace lets out a sharp gasp of betrayal from her table. "Thank you, Mr. Mason," Arthur says. He doesn't need to ask anything else. The admission of the father destroys any defense of family consensus. Finally, Candace takes the stand. She does not look defeated. She looks defiant. She smooths her blazer and looks at the judge with a woman-to-woman expression. "Mrs. Mason," Mr. Sterling asks, "can you explain the withdrawals labeled guardian expenses?" "Absolutely," Candace says, her voice smooth. "Gabrielle is a troubled girl. She has always had emotional difficulties. She could not manage money. If I had given her that cash, she would have wasted it. I used that money to maintain the lifestyle of the family she was part of. If the house needed repairs, that benefits her. If the car needed maintenance, that benefits her." "So you acted as a de facto guardian?" Sterling suggests. "I did." Candace nods. "I was the only adult in the room. Mark was passive. Everett was. Getting old. I had to make the hard decisions." Arthur stands up for cross-examination. He holds a single piece of paper. "Mrs. Mason, you claim you spent the money on the family to benefit Gabrielle. You claim you were a protective guardian." "I was," she insists. "Then can you explain this?" Arthur asks. "Exhibit F, a text message chain recovered from your phone between you and a contact listed as Linda, your best friend, I believe." Candace freezes. Arthur reads the text aloud. The courtroom is so quiet you can hear the hum of the lights. Date: December 24th, 2 years ago. Text: "Just transferred another $5,000 from the brat's account. She thinks she is getting a scarf for Christmas. LOL. Honestly, taking the idiot's share is so easy it feels like a crime. But hey, someone has to pay for my Botox." Arthur lowers the paper. He looks at Candace over his glasses. "Did you write this, Mrs. Mason?" Candace's mouth opens and closes. There is no spin for this. There is no guardian defense for calling your stepdaughter an idiot and laughing about stealing her money for Botox. "It was a joke," she whispers. "It was just girl talk." Judge Vance leans forward. Her face is thunderous. "Mrs. Mason, I do not find theft funny, and I certainly do not find the systematic exploitation of a dependent to be a source of humor." The judge turns to Arthur. "Do you have more, Mr. Blake?" "I have the forensic accounting of the Botox withdrawal. Your Honor, it matches the date of the text exactly. $5,000 paid to the Ageless Beauty Clinic." Candace slumps in her chair. Her lawyer closes his folder. He knows it is over. "I would like to say something." A voice booms from the plaintiff's table. It is Grandpa Everett. He is standing up, leaning heavily on his cane, but he looks magnificent. "Mr. Mason," Judge Vance says respectfully, "this is irregular, but given the circumstances, I will allow it." Everett turns to look at Candace. "I welcomed you into this family," he says. His voice shakes with rage. "I trusted you with my son. I trusted you with my grandchildren. I thought you were a mother." He points a shaking finger at me. "This girl, this young woman, has more dignity in her little finger than you have in your entire body. She scrubbed floors while you spent her inheritance on vanity. You are not a mother. Candace, you are a parasite." He looks at the judge. "Your Honor, I want her gone. I want her name off every account. I want her out of the house I paid for. And I want every single dollar she stole returned to Gabrielle, even if we have to sell the clothes off her back to do it." "I object," Candace screams, standing up. I have rights. I have... Sit down! Judge Vance bangs her gavel. The sound cracks through the room like a pistol shot. I have heard enough, the judge says. She doesn't even look at her notes. She looks straight at Candace. The court finds that there is overwhelming evidence of fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and conversion of assets. The motion to remove Candace Mason as trustee is granted immediately. The court appoints Mr. Arthur Blake as the temporary conservator of the trust. She scribbles furiously on her order sheet. Furthermore, I am issuing a temporary restraining order. Mrs. Mason, you are to have no contact with Gabrielle Mason or Everett Mason. You are to vacate the residence at 42 Oak Drive by 5 o'clock this afternoon. You are not to remove any items of value, as they are now considered potential assets for restitution. But where will I go? Candace wails. That is my home. I suggest you ask Linda if you can sleep on her couch, Judge Vance says coldly, since she found your theft so amusing. I am also referring this transcript to the district attorney's office, the judge adds. I believe there are grounds for multiple felony charges here. Mr. Sterling, I suggest you advise your client to remain in the state. Judge Vance looks at me. Her expression softens just a fraction. Ms. Mason, I am sorry the system failed to protect you sooner, but it will protect you now. The assets are frozen. They are yours. She bangs the gavel one last time. Court is adjourned. The bailiff moves toward Candace. Ma'am, I need to escort you out. Candace looks at me one last time. She looks like she wants to scream, to attack, to burn the building down. But she is small now, stripped of the money, stripped of the status, stripped of the lies. She is just a middle-aged woman in a suit she can no longer afford. She turns and walks out, the bailiff trailing her like a shadow. I stand up. My legs feel like jelly, but I am standing. Arthur turns to me and offers a rare, wide smile. We did it. Gabrielle, it is over. Grandpa Everett pulls me into a hug. He smells like peppermint and old wool. I bury my face in his shoulder. It is okay now, he whispers. You are safe. I look across the room at my father. He is still sitting in the back row. He looks at us, a family united, and realizes he is on the outside. He stands up slowly and walks out the back door, alone. I take a deep breath of the courtroom air. It doesn't smell like lemon polish and anxiety anymore. It smells like freedom. The fluorescent lights of the hospital room hum with a low, electric buzz, a sound that feels strangely like a countdown. We are back in room 412 at St. Jude's, but the atmosphere has shifted entirely from our last gathering here. 2 days ago, this room was a battlefield of confusion and lies. Today, it is a courtroom of consequences. Grandpa Everett insisted on this meeting. Despite the restraining order Judge Vance issued just hours ago, he instructed Arthur to grant Candace a 1-hour compassionate exception to attend. He wanted to look her in the eye one last time. He wanted her to hear the terms of her exile directly from him, not from a process server. I am standing by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Arthur is at the foot of the bed, holding a fresh document, the paper crisp and white. Candace is sitting in the corner. Her arms cross so tightly across her chest, I suspect she might be cutting off her own circulation. She looks smaller without the armor of her delusions. The judge's order to vacate the house has clearly shaken her. Her hair is slightly frayed, and her eyes dart around the room like a trapped animal. My father, Mark, stands near the door, keeping his distance from everyone. Mason Jr. sits on the edge of the radiator cover, looking at his sneakers. Shall we begin? Everett says. His voice is weak, but his gaze is steady. He is sitting upright, fueled by a final burst of resolve. Arthur clears his throat. We are here to review the Third Amendment to the last will and testament of Everett Mason, as well as the immediate restructuring of the Mason Family Trust. Candace makes a noise in her throat, a sharp intake of breath, but she says nothing. Effective immediately, Arthur reads. Candace Mason is removed as a beneficiary of any and all assets. The spousal provision previously allocated to her in the event of Mark Mason's passing is revoked. Furthermore, she is permanently barred from holding any power of attorney or administrative role regarding any family asset. Arthur pauses, letting the words hang in the air. The primary estate, including the residence at 42 Oak Drive, the commercial holdings, and the liquid investment portfolio, is hereby placed into a new, irrevocable trust. He looks up. The sole trustee and primary beneficiary of this trust is Gabrielle Mason. The silence shatters. "What?" Candace screeches. She leaps from her chair, forgetting the restraining order, forgetting the judge, forgetting everything but her own greed. "You are giving everything to her? To the girl who abandoned you?" "She didn't abandon me," Everett says calmly. "You drove her away, and then you robbed her." "I was protecting this family," Candace yells, pointing a trembling finger at me. "She has brainwashed you, Everett. Can't you see it? She comes back after 10 years, cries a few crocodile tears, and suddenly she owns everything? She is manipulating you. She is just like her mother, greedy and selfish." I brace myself. Usually, this is the part where I shrink. This is the part where I apologize. But I don't move. I just watch her unravel. "Candace, stop," a voice says. It isn't Arthur. It isn't Everett. It is my father. Mark Mason steps away from the door. He walks into the center of the room, placing himself between Candace and the bed. He looks terrified, his hands shaking at his sides, but he is standing there. "Don't you dare speak to me like that, Mark!" Candace snaps, turning her fury on him. "Tell your father he's making a mistake. Tell him." "No," Dad says. The word is quiet, but firm. Candace blinks, stunned. "Excuse me?" "I said no," Dad repeats, his voice gaining volume. "He isn't making a mistake. He is fixing one. The mistake was mine. Candace, the mistake was letting you treat my daughter like a servant in her own home for 15 years because I was too much of a coward to stand up to you." "I treated her like a daughter," Candace insists. "You treated her like an ATM," Dad shouts, the anger of a decade finally erupting. "You hit her. You stole from her. You made her feel worthless. And I watched. I watched you do it because I didn't want to be alone. Well, I am done. You want to talk about brainwashing? You convinced me that my own child was the enemy. You convinced me that stealing her money was financial management. I am the one who was brainwashed, Candace, and I just woke up." Candace stares at him, her mouth agape. The passive, malleable husband she had molded like clay has hardened into stone. You are taking her side?" she whispers, her voice trembling with betrayal. "I am taking the side of the truth," Dad says. He looks at me, tears welling in his eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me. Gabby, I don't deserve it, but I won't let her hurt you again. I feel a lump in my throat. It is too little, too late, but it is something." Candace whirls around, looking for a new ally. Her eyes land on Mason Jr. "Mason!" she cries. "Are you going to let them do this to us? That money was for your future, your car, your college. She is taking it all." Mason looks up. He looks at his mother. Then he looks at me. He looks at the grandfather, who is breathing heavily in the bed. "Mom," Mason says softly, "just stop." "Stop?" Candace gasps. "I am fighting for you." "You aren't fighting for me," Mason says. He stands up and walks over to Arthur. "Mr. Blake, what happens to my share?" Arthur looks at his notes. Under the new structure, 20% of the estate is placed in a separate trust for your education and living expenses. However, it is contingent. You cannot access the principal until you are 25. And Gabrielle is the trustee. She has to approve your expenses. Candace lets out a harsh laugh. "See? She controls you now. She will starve you just like you think I starved her." Mason turns to me. He doesn't look angry. He looks relieved. "Is that true, Gabby?" he asks. "You are in charge of my money?" Yes, I say. But I won't buy Botox with it, Mason, and I won't buy myself a vacation with your tuition. If you need it for school, you get it. If you need it for a real car, not a toy, you get it. But you don't get a free ride to be a jerk. Mason nods. He actually smiles, a small, sad quirk of his lips. That sounds fair. Honestly, I don't trust Mom with it anymore either. She spent my textbook money on a purse last semester. He looks at his mother. I am sorry, Mom, but I am staying with Grandpa and Gabby. The heir leaves the room. Candace stands alone in the center of the linoleum floor. Her husband has turned. Her son has defected. Her bank accounts are frozen. The narrative she spent years building, the saintly stepmother, the burden of a stepdaughter, has been burned to ash. She looks at Everett. You are a cruel old man. She spits. I gave you the best years of my life. You sold them to me, Everett corrects her, and the price was too high. He reaches under his pillow and pulls out a thick manila envelope. He holds it out to me. Gabrielle, he says. I walk to the bed. Candace tries to step forward, but Mark blocks her path. I take the envelope. It is heavy. Open it, Everett whispers. I undo the clasp. Inside, there is a stack of legal documents, the deeds to the commercial properties, the keys to a safety deposit box, and the title to the house on Oak Drive. On top of the stack is a handwritten letter on yellow legal paper. The handwriting is shaky, but legible. I read the first line aloud. The truth is the best revenge. I look at Candace. I hold up the title deed to the house. This is mine now, I say. The judge gave you until 5 o'clock to vacate, but since I am the owner, and since you just insulted my grandfather in his hospital bed, I am evicting you now. You have 30 minutes. Candace turns a shade of purple I didn't know existed in nature. She looks like she is about to scream, to attack, to explode, but then she looks at Arthur, who is calmly holding his phone, ready to call security. She looks at Mark, who is standing like a wall. She realizes she has absolutely no power left. Fine, she screams. Keep it. Keep the rotting house. Keep the miserable old man. I don't need any of you. I have friends. I have a life. She grabs her purse. There is no family here anymore. You are all dead to me. She turns and runs. She doesn't walk. She runs out of the room, her heels clicking frantically down the hallway, the sound of a rat fleeing a sinking ship. When the door swings shut, the silence that follows is heavy, but it is not empty. It is filled with the sound of deep, collective exhales. Mason sits back down, putting his head in his hands. Dad walks over to the window and leans his forehead against the cool glass, weeping silently. I sit on the edge of the bed. Grandpa Everett looks exhausted. His skin is gray, his breathing shallow. The confrontation has taken everything he had. Grandpa, I whisper, taking his hand. He opens his eyes. He squeezes my fingers. I fixed it, Gabby, he wheezes. Did I fix it? Yes, I say, tears finally spilling over. You fixed it. You were amazing. I need you to do one more thing, he says. He nods to Arthur. Arthur steps forward with one final document. It is a single page. This is a durable power of attorney, Arthur explains softly. It grants you full authority over Everett's healthcare and remaining finances, effective immediately. It supersedes any previous authority held by Mark or Candace. He hands me a pen. Everett wants you to be the one to decide, Arthur says. If he gets sicker, if he needs care, he wants you to be the one holding the pen, not because you are the beneficiary, but because you are the only one who never lied to him. I look at the paper. This isn't about money. This is about trust. This is him putting his life in my hands after I spent years thinking I was unworthy of holding anything. I look at my father. He turns from the window and nods. Sign it, Gabby. You are the head of this family now. I look at Mason. He gives me a thumbs up. I look at Grandpa. He is smiling, a peaceful, sleepy smile. Sign it, sweetie, he whispers. Take the wheel. I press the pen to the paper. My hand is steady. Gabrielle A., Mason. I put the pen down. Arthur collects the document. It is done. I sit there, holding my grandfather's hand as he drifts into a nap. The rain has stopped outside. The sky is clearing. I am 27 years old. I have $300,000, a house, a brother to look out for, and a father who is trying to find his way back. I am not the victim anymore. I am the one holding the pen. This concludes the transfer, Arthur says, his voice carrying the finality of a closing argument. The old trust is dissolved. The new trust is active. The funds, all $340,000 of them, are now under your sole control. No guardians, no countersignatures, just you. I lean back in the leather chair, the smell of expensive polish filling my nose. It is a stark contrast to the lemon-scented cleaner of the motel room where this started 48 hours ago. It feels strange, I admit. For 10 years, I thought I was worth nothing. Now, I have a portfolio. Arthur takes off his glasses and cleans them, a habit I have come to recognize as his way of shifting from lawyer to mentor. Money is just a tool. Gabrielle, like a hammer, you can use it to build a house, or you can use it to break someone's kneecaps. Candace tried to do both, and she ended up hitting herself in the face. I smile. The image of Candace defeating herself is a pleasant one. Speaking of Candace, I say, have we heard from Mr. Sterling? Arthur chuckles, a dry sound. We did, about an hour ago. Apparently, Candace wanted to file a countersuit for emotional distress and wrongful eviction. She claimed that kicking her out of the house caused her severe psychological trauma. And, I ask, feeling a phantom spike of anxiety. And her lawyer, Mr. Sterling, advised her that if she filed a single piece of paper in court, I would hand the full forensic accounting of her fraud over to the district attorney within 5 minutes. He told her that emotional distress is preferable to 5 to 10 years in a federal penitentiary. Arthur puts his glasses back on. She withdrew the request. She is currently staying at a motel on the interstate, not the Sunset Pines, thankfully, one with even lower standards. I look out the window. So she is just gone? She is neutralized, Arthur corrects. She has no money, no reputation, and no family left to leech off of. You could pursue criminal charges. Gabrielle, you have the right. You could put her in prison. I think about it. I think about the slap. I feel the ghost of the sting on my cheek. I remember the smell of the bathroom potpourri and the look of absolute loathing in her eyes. I remember the way she looked at me in the courtroom, stripped of her power. No, I say slowly, I don't need to put her in prison. She built her own prison. She has to live every day knowing that the stepdaughter she called a wretch is the one who evicted her. She has to live knowing she lost everything because she got greedy over a glass of soda. That is worse than jail for a woman like Candace. Irrelevance is her hell. Arthur nods approvingly. Living well is the best revenge. It is a cliché because it is true. He hands me a folder. So, what is the plan? You have the capital, you have the house, you have the power of attorney. What does Gabrielle Mason do next? I run my hand over the leather file. I have been thinking about this since the gavel came down. I am going to sell the house, I say. I can't live there. Arthur, too many ghosts. Dad is going to move into a condo downtown. He needs to learn how to be alone for a while. Mason is going back to college, and I will pay for his dorm so he doesn't have to live with Candace. And you? Arthur asks. I realize something, I say. I actually like the hotel business. I liked working at the Grandview. Even when I was scrubbing floors, I liked the order of it. I liked making things perfect for people. The problem wasn't the work. The problem was that I was doing it to survive while someone else stole my paycheck. I look him in the eye. I applied to the hospitality management program at Cornell this morning. I am going to get my degree, and then I am going to open my own boutique hotel. But not here, not in Cedar Falls. A fresh start, Arthur muses. I like it. I stand up and extend my hand. Thank you. Arthur, you didn't just find me. You saved me. Arthur shakes my hand firmly. Your grandfather saved you. Gabrielle, I just drove the car. An hour later, I am driving my old sedan down the highway. The engine still rattles, and the side mirror is still taped on. I haven't had time to buy a new car yet, though I know I can buy any car I want now. I find myself turning off the main road, guided by an impulse I can't quite name. The tires crunch over wet gravel as I pull into the parking lot of the Sunset Pines Motel. It looks exactly the same as it did 2 nights ago. The neon sign is still buzzing with a dying flicker. The rain puddles are still murky and reflecting the gray sky. I park in front of room 104. I don't go in. I don't have a key anymore. I just sit in the car, looking at the peeling paint on the door. I remember sitting on that bed, holding my bruised cheek, thinking my life was over. I remember feeling like a trapped animal, waiting for the predator to come finish me off. I remember the crushing weight of the belief that I was worthless, that I deserved the slap, that I was just a stain on Candace's silk dress. It feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like a nightmare I finally woke up from. I look at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The bruise is fading, turning a pale yellow that is easily hidden with a little concealer, but my eyes are different. They aren't the eyes of a scared girl anymore. They are the eyes of a woman who stared down a courtroom and won. I realize now that the slap was not the end of me. It was the beginning. It was the catalyst. If she hadn't hit me, if she hadn't pushed me that one step too far, I might have stayed. I might have let her steal from me for another 10 years. I might have let her erase me completely. Her cruelty was the key to my freedom. I roll down the window and let the smell of damp pine and exhaust fill the car. It doesn't smell like despair anymore. It smells like a starting line. I pull out my phone. I have one unread message from Mason Jr. "Hey Gabby, Mom tried to call me. I blocked her. Dad and I are getting pizza. Grandpa is awake and asking for you. Love you." I smile. Love you? 2 words I haven't heard from my brother in a decade. I type back. On my way. Save me a slice. I put the phone down and put the car in reverse. I back out of the spot in front of room 104. I don't look back. There is nothing in that room for me anymore. The ghost of the girl who stayed there is gone. I pull onto the highway. Merging into traffic, I press down on the accelerator. The old car groans, but it moves. It moves forward, away from the motel, away from the house on Oak Drive, away from Candace. I am Gabrielle Mason. I am the owner of my own life, and as the city limits of Cedar Falls fade in my rearview mirror, I know one thing for sure. I won. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I really hope you enjoyed Gabrielle's journey from silence to victory. Please let me know in the comments section below where you are listening from. I love seeing our community grow across the world. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel Lila Revenge Stories. Hit that like button on the video, and give us a hype to help this story reach even more people who might need a little inspiration to stand up for themselves. See you in the next story.